The other sort of aspect here is that on the demand side, there is a very strong interest to indigenize or localize some of these very powerful AI models, right? Because at the end of the day, language is really a vessel, right, for one's society's cultural beliefs and norms. So there's a lot of, I guess, national efforts going on where countries are rich enough, right, to try and build their own indigenous models.
Welcome to the Make Tomorrow podcast, where we venture into the heart of innovation and technology. I'm your host, Tristan Sternson, the global co-lead of our NCS Next business. We're going to invite on some very exciting guests onto this show. We're going to talk about their Make Tomorrow and how technology and innovation are shaping the world. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Make Tomorrow podcast. Today, we're excited to have a visionary guest, Ying Shaowei, who not only foresees the future of technology, but plays a crucial role in molding it. From the depths of everything AI to the promises of green AI and everything in between, we'll explore how these emerging technologies are not just shaping the digital landscape, but also defining a sustainable, secure, and immersive tomorrow. Shaowei is the Senior Partner and Chief Scientist of NCS. Shaowei advises NCS on market spaces and technology trends, while also developing the company's voice on emerging technologies. Previously, Shaowei co-founded DataSpark, a big data company leading its rapid growth across Singapore and the Asia-Pacific region. As Chief Operating Officer, he expanded DataSpark into multiple countries and spearheaded notable projects, including the analysis of the Singapore Grand Prix and Changi Airport visitation. Shaowei's diverse background includes roles in Singtel's Head of Strategy and Analytics, an Associate Principal of McKinsey, specialising in strategy and marketing, a Deputy Director in Singapore's Ministry of Trade and Industry. He holds advanced degrees in electrical engineering, financial engineering, and business administration from prestigious institutions. With extensive industry experience and a track record of driving innovation, Shaowei plays a pivotal role in shaping NCS strategies, directions, and championing technology advancements. And I'm very fortunate to be able to work with Shaowei on a day-to-day basis. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tristan, for having me.
I'm going to ask you one question, just a big question.
Sure.
If you had all the money in the world and overnight you could create one technology, what would it be?
I think that will be general artificial intelligence.
General artificial intelligence?
Yes, I think that would be extremely intriguing and impactful. We've already seen some examples of how AI affect our daily lives. Imagine now we can exploit a superhuman capabilities, right, for good, right, to make our tomorrow better, right? Wouldn't we want to do that, right? And that could actually open up humanity, right, to not just possibilities on planet Earth, but maybe across the solar system and beyond.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, that's definitely futuristic. And something that we would love to see in the future, wouldn't we? I think you'd need that blank check as well, because it will cost a lot of money to get there. Let's dive straight into it. So we have the tech bets at NCS, and we talk about asking the right questions and the right tech bets and what we're focusing on in the future. So we had our FY24 and tech bets, and now we're into our financial year 25. What's the driving forces and some of the shifts that we're seeing in the tech bets that you're foreseeing over the next 12 months?
So every year, right, we look at the major tech trends that are relevant to NCS, right? We filter them by their potential impact on the sectors and geographies that we serve, right? We also look at their maturity and readiness, all right, for us to reap meaningful returns in a relatively short 1 to 3 year time frame. But most importantly, we look at these tech trends and select those that we feel NCS as a company have a right to play, that we can develop distinctive capabilities, right, to serve the business needs of our clients, right? And between the last year's FY24 and this year's FY25 tech bets, I would say that the key difference is really due to the fast-moving advancements of AI, simply put, right? The resurgence of AI is not just the most important technology wave, right, to affect our tech landscape, it also sends ripples, right, to the other areas of the tech landscape, such as digital trust and resiliency, right, sustainability, and also our fundamental interaction, right, between humans and machines. Hence, our first and most important tech bet is everything AI.
Yeah. Okay, so everything AI, right? Before I get into that, I just want to tell just a little story. I was recently fortunate enough to be on a panel with some amazing speakers from in Australia, and one person talked about he'd just come back from a study at one of the prestigious universities in the US, and they talked about the evolution of technology history, and they had the last 100 years, and it was on 4 walls, and each wall represented 25 years.
Right.
And he said it was visually, as you saw, as you go around the wall, you started with a wall with not much on it. And he said most of everything was condensed into the last 10 years, which was the last quarter of one of the walls, right? And I think AI would have featured probably on 3 of those walls, right? But now we talk a lot about everything AI. So talk to me, generative AI, I call it September 2022 when it became famous, ChatGPT, it was always around, right? Now we talk about it as internally, or you've launched the everything AI. What does everything AI mean?
I like the analogy that you sort of cited earlier about the 4 walls and how everything seems to be condensed into the last sort of time period. I think that's really the one of the fundamental fundamental laws of nature, this exponential progression. If you look again at the geological scale, right, the time scale of planet Earth, right, human life only probably appears in the last millisecond or 10 seconds,
Yep.
right? And so it will be with technologies as well, I feel, right, and the advancement of humanity. Everything seems to always happen in the last, fraction of the time period. Now, back on where I see AI progressing, right, and why I think it is going to be pervasive across our lives. The driving force of change is not just about the technology per se, right? We are also seeing how supply and demand aspects also changing very rapidly. In a recent sort of thought leadership article that I'm preparing, I've called up a number of important everything AI kind of trends or driving forces that is leading to everything AI. We all talked about large language models thanks to ChatGPT, right? In its launch in, I think, November 2022, right? What we're now seeing is the transition from LLM to LMM, which is large multimodal models.
Okay.
All right, and what that means is that these large engines no longer just process text well, but also all kinds of data, right? And they are including audio files, image files, video files, and they're all going to be integrated into workflows, right? Allowing us to better understand sort of the entire context, right, of a certain business situation. The second sort of important sort of driving change is behind all these AI technologies is what I call size. It's not everything, right? Increasingly, we are seeing much more task-specific kind of AI models that perform just as well, right, as the very large language models like GPT-4, which has 1.5 trillion parameters, right? But these smaller models are more energy efficient and achieve a certain accuracy and performance that rival some of these large models. The third one I'd like to call on the technology front is really what we call from rag to riches, right? A lot of concern early days has been around how the AI models will hallucinate. But increasingly, people are learning how to ground it, right, and to retrieve it from authorized databases, right? And this advances in management of retrieval augmented generation, which what RAG stands for, opens the doors to greater enterprise adoption, hence to riches. So these are all the important sort of technology changes. But as I mentioned before, it's not just only on the technology front. We're seeing also drastic changes on the supply side and the demand side. On the supply side, it is really a jungle out there. The proliferation of AI startups thanks to the influx of venture funding, right, is quite remarkable. And it will continue to grow. But we also see emerging from these chaotic landscape are a few towering digital giants, right? And the familiar CSPs, cloud service providers, are right there rolling out all these important innovations on their AI platforms. But we're also seeing the continued dominance, I would say, of NVIDIA as a chip maker at the hardware layer.
Yeah.
Right. All these supply side changes are going to be coupled with a lot of sort of demand side changes as well, where we are seeing enterprises also lapping up. And as part of the trend I'm seeing is there is a fear of missing out among business executives, right? They are all jumping on a bandwagon. But I will also predict very soon that there will be a reality check, right? They'll realize that not all that glitters is gold, not all that glitters is necessarily Western, right? And then with regulations rising as well, right? There will be a sort of a burst in the hype, I would say, about all these advances in AI.
Rags to riches. That's a first I've heard that, but that's a fantastic analogy there. Can I draw back onto a couple of things? So you mentioned in there not all the gold will be Western. Is that talking about the technologies themselves, or
right?
Yeah, it's a multilingual. Is that what you refer to in that space?
I think there are a couple of aspects here.
Yep.
Right. First of all, I think we got to recognize that a lot of the important AI advancements are not necessarily only from the Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
Right. Until sort of the intensification of all these geopolitical tensions, a lot of the sort of publications and R&D achievements were actually from China.
Yep.
Right. It is really from the way that they are openly sort of collecting a lot of data and building their algorithms on these collected data. The other sort of aspect here is that on the demand side, there is a very strong interest, right, to indigenize or localize some of these very powerful AI models, right? Because at the end of the day, language is really a vessel, right, for one's society's cultural beliefs and norms. Yeah. So there's a lot of, I guess, national efforts going on where countries are rich enough, right, to try and build their own indigenous models. Here in Singapore, for example, the national institution AI.SG is investing quite a lot of money to build what we call the Sea Lion, the Southeast Asia large language models.
Yeah, right. I find that fascinating because I think this is one particular area of technology where on the four walls, it's like in the last millisecond as well, but everything AI really needs to be localized to me. It's like, it's fascinating. I love what you said. It's not all coming out of Silicon Valley because it can't, right? Like the best example that I've seen of artificial intelligence in like the conversational aspect was the one that we did here with Singtel, which had to translate things into Singlish, right? It's its own dialect of English, which has its own anomalies, which make it very hard for anything to interpret things. It's like the early days of Siri, right? If you had a slight accent, it was really hard for it to interpret. Now, it doesn't matter what you speak with, right? So I think that's really important. That's what makes the power of it, which is fantastic.
And I've got to add, some of the languages in Southeast Asia are not Latin-based.
Yeah.
Right? They are Sanskrit-based, which means that a lot of the encoders, right, that we have in these large language models do not work very well. Yeah. Right, and therefore, there's a need to sort of, rebuild some of these parts. Yeah. Right, and the other thing is that a lot of these trending large language models out there are based on corpus of Western text. Yeah. Right, and while that's the most developed, right, it misses out on the other kinds, non-English text as well. Yeah. Right, which are important aspects of one's society's culture.
Yeah, and there are so many little anomalies between different languages, which makes it really important. Like, for example, how do you address someone, right? Like, I joked about it. I was talking to my son when I flew over here to Singapore. because when we came over like a while ago, they kept addressing him as Samuel because that was his middle name, and we thought it was funny. But it just goes to show the dialect. You call someone the wrong name,
correct.
it might not be as effective, or it could cause problems. Imagine that in a medical system, right?
So we're testing some of the large language models, right, to see whether they can figure out what was the speaker a male or female based on the words that they were using, right? And for some of these non-specialized large language models, they weren't able to pick up. For example, the Thai language, the person was actually a female speaker because of the way certain words were pronounced or certain words were spoken.
I love this topic, but for the simplicity side of it, we've talked at a very kind of a bit more scientific. What are some of the like everyday things that you're seeing that might impact people's lives? Some good examples you see might impact them over the next few years.
Well, I think that over the next few years, the influence of AI will only continue to grow. In top of the list for me are, one, enhanced communications. We talked about it, right? Just now, AI will continue to break down language barriers with real-time translation services, making global communication seamless, right? Currently, as you know, some of the work that we have in the Tesseract, we are already demonstrating how multilingual co-pilots can be useful as personal assistants to contact centers, customer service agents, helping them with things like speech transcription, summarization, even speech generation, answering complex questions, right? Training and meeting various kinds of compliance requirements as well, right? So for me, enhanced communication is number one. Number two will be, I think, smart mobility. Right, while fully autonomous vehicles may not be ubiquitous in the next few years, right, we're still likely to see significant advancements. AI will definitely improve transportation. Right now, I'm writing a white paper on intelligent transport systems 2.0, right, especially at a time when we're rolling out this satellite-based navigation systems for every vehicle in Singapore. Right, there will be a deluge of big data, right, that only AI, right, will be able to sort of process intelligently, right? And also with the advancements of generative AI, we're not going to be able to make our transportation ecosystem a lot more intelligent, a lot more informative, more interactive, more assistive, and even more sustainable as we move towards green mobility.
So I have to stop you on that and just have a bit of a conversation around intelligent transport, because a pet project that I worked on about 5 years ago predicted that by 2025 we would have fully autonomous vehicles driving around in Melbourne, right? And then I look back to when we wrote that 6 years ago, 5-6 years ago, and I think, how wrong were we, right? And the big issue was, at the time, you had one Tesla driving around Silicon Valley autonomously, it was fine, and then you had the accident that happened, and all these things that kind of happened off that. And when you actually think about it, unless everything's autonomous, it can't really be autonomous, because you can't have a human and a computer making the decision, right? I want to delve into that a bit better, because Singapore could actually be one of the best countries in the world to integrate that, because of the size and the size of the city and the way it's all constructed. Is like, how do you see autonomous vehicles actually hitting the road and actually becoming a fully autonomous city? And where do you think the first, I won't hold you to this, we'll put this in the vault, but where do you think the first autonomous city might be?
Well, I think Singapore will probably be one of those cities that will be an excellent laboratory for a lot of these sort of autonomous technologies. But I don't think the end state is actually a fully autonomous city or smart city, right? I think there will be a high degree of autonomy, right, where autonomous vehicles will run alongside non-autonomous vehicles, right? And actually that is a much harder problem to solve for, right? Because you have to deal with the variabilities of the human motorists and pedestrians. But I think the right way to sort of look at this topic is not about full autonomy. It's about how some of these autonomous technologies would transform not just the way users of transport network will get around, but how transport operators and transport planners will now have certain tools and capabilities, right, to optimize their efforts much better. Right. So take the example of a transport planner. Now, he is now able to do things in a much more integrative way, right? Not just optimizing for various modes of transportation, including public transit as well as private motoring, but he's also able to integrate it with smart urban planning and operations, right? With, for example, building or campus facilities management as well,
Yeah.
right? So that someone who is arriving to attend a Taylor Swift concert in Singapore has seamless travel to the venue, right, to the stadium, and the stadium already anticipates who is coming in, clearing security all the way to ushering the person into the seat, all in a seamless flow. That is possible.
Amazing, but that smarter city part, that then plays into green AI, right? Because once we can go from having everything autonomous or everything around us, let's talk a little bit about green AI. How does that then feed into that aspect of it?
Green AI, to me, has two aspects here, right? Well, certainly AI can optimize a lot of the business processes, helping companies on their journey to net zero. AI itself is also consuming a lot of energy, right? It's causing a lot of new data centers to be built, right? So it's also very important that we not just have green by ICT, but green for ICT as well, right? Where we look into how we can improve the algorithms and the data needs of some of these AI systems, right? So for me, I've been trying to advocate more work within NCS to be done around green software, right? We run our own data centers, and as you know, our parent company Singtel Group is also rapidly growing its data center business regionally. It is important that we harness the advanced technologies inside these data centers, right, to lower their power utilization efficiency ratios.
In a conversation I had probably about a month ago with some very powerful kind of executives of technology companies, I've said that I actually think that AI could be the savior of sustainability, right? Or could be the influencer of it, because a lot of time we have all the right intentions, right? But we don't know how to implement it, right? And AI might actually make it a lot easier for us to go with the implementation of it. What do you think about that as a comment?
I think one of the challenges of that is the lack of expertise and skills,
Yep.
right? AI tools are getting easier to use, right? And it's really democratizing the sort of leverage of data and analytics. But every situation in which AI is applied to is different, and it is important that there are the skill sets, right, and the deep domain knowledge, right, to complement, right, the sort of technical capabilities of AI here, right?
Yep.
So in many of my conversations I've been having with executives, right, there is an acute awareness that of the need to sort of upskill a core pool of AI practitioners, whether in the company, in the industry, or in the country.
So how do you see green AI influencing sort of future policy decisions that are made? Like what role will it play in kind of shaping that sustainable future of business?
As I mentioned before, there will be two lenses again to look at it, right? There will be a lot more sort of push towards green software practices, right? Green data centers, right? And this could be done via incentives or government regulations in order to achieve that, right? And then on the other end, right, we also see more. We already see more regulations around ESG reporting,
Yep.
right? And in order to do that reporting efficiently, right, many companies are using AI as tools, right, to generate the monitoring and the measurement of the various kinds of metrics, right? And obviously companies are starting to also use digital transformation techniques, right, to improve their various business processes. Many of these digital transformation techniques embed sort of AI within them, right, AI and machine learning.
That's interesting. You talk a lot about data centers as well. And I think one of the things that we thought about in early days was not just, I mean, it is data centers, but people don't think about it, but it's also cloud providers, it's software providers, it's software as a service and stuff. And really understanding that. I mean, we leverage the onus back to the provider and expect that they're going to do stuff. But a fascinating speaker I heard 3 years ago talked about how do you evaluate which of the clouds is the greenest cloud, for example. Now, I won't ask you which one because we probably all know the answers to that. But that's an important thing for a lot of corporations to kind of consider too. It's not just what you produce, not your own data centers, it's what you're subscribing to.
Yeah, the hard part has always been that there are a mixture of sometimes competing considerations that companies need to make, right? They're not just necessarily only optimizing for sustainability, right? There are obvious more important imperatives about meeting SLAs, customer satisfaction, right, and ensuring reliability and system uptime, right, from the many applications, right? So there is and also a consideration around not being held captive by a single CSP.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So all these blend of considerations, again, perhaps require AI to help optimize for.
So let's move from green AI, fascinating topic, we can probably talk forever, into digital trust and resiliency. So you talk a lot about quantum computing, and I know it's not one of our digital trends for this year, but I'm sure it will be in the years to come. So as quantum computing emerges, how do you believe digital trust and resiliency frameworks will evolve to maintain the integrity and security in the face of such kind of computerization power? Because that's huge power at the hands of people's hands, right?
Well, first of all, I think quantum computing is not something that will appear overnight. I think there's still going to be a bit of a runway of a number of years. But as we know about the effect of exponential growth, right? It could suddenly appear, right? If you're not watching. That said, I think some companies are already starting to prepare for the era of quantum computing, right? And as you mentioned, digital trust and resiliency frameworks definitely need to evolve, right? To help maintain integrity and security against the backdrop of such powerful computation, power. Right. So what are they doing? Right. I think first of all is really the need for enhanced cryptography. Right. We know that quantum computing will be able to crack the 1024 RSA codes. Right. Within days, if not hours. Right.
Yep.
What would have taken millions of years for a traditional computer to do. Right, so there needs to be a new sort of quantum resistant methods, right, that need to be not only be developed but also standardized, right, and to be adopted across industries to secure communications and data. And this can only come about through increased collaboration, obviously, right? Maintaining digital trust in the quantum era actually really requires unprecedented sort of collaboration between governments, private sector entities, and of course, academic institutions. Now, in this sort of geopolitical climate, it's hard to see, right? How the government-to-government collaborations will pan out. And then there is the need for perhaps public awareness and education in time, right? As the quantum computing becomes a lot more prevalent, right? We need to be a lot more aware about this potential risk and its sort of impact on digital trust for society.
Yeah, so digital trust, another draw back to Taylor Swift, right? So she made famous the deep fake. I think we've all seen quite a lot of that around recently, and we've seen that a bit. So deep fakes, I mean, they pose a significant challenge to digital trust, right? What strategies do you believe are essential for us to combat the proliferation and protect users from that?
A lot of these deepfakes are really quite innovative and sophisticated use of AI, right? In order to counter AI, unfortunately here we also need to have more AI, right? AI against AI to try and detect some of these deepfakes with high enough level of accuracy, right? So this will involve, development of new training detection models, right? And also collecting enough data about all these previous deepfakes, right? And also, be able to collaborate across governments and industries, right, to build out this important sort of database of deepfakes. Some of the work we're doing here, right, with our Singtel networks, right, on scam detection, right, shows us how complicated some of these measures, right? Not just in terms of the technology, but in terms of the coordination efforts that are required among the different stakeholders, right? And talking about coordination among stakeholders, one thing that is always trying to catch up is the legal and regulatory frameworks here, right? Implementing strong legal measures, right? That define what constitutes, I guess, a criminal activity, right? Is crucial, right? And I think there is probably a need. I'm not an expert on this front, but I think there will be a need, right, for a lot more inter-government kind of coordination. And over here in Singapore, I think there has also been a concerted campaign around public awareness and education.
I can't wait to, like, AI versus AI. That sounds like a bit of a Hollywood movie, right? To some extent, I can see a movie on that coming out at some stage. But let's move on to that, into immersive spatial computing.
Sure.
So immersive technologies, like, that's one of my main fascinations, right? And I've been trying to play around with that a lot to see where we go with that. I think there's a lot of incarnations of that where we can get significant benefit to productivity, to effectiveness, just to accuracy on a lot of things as well. So where do you feel spatial computing will go to, and where do you see some of the real examples?
The obvious sort of sector which will lap up to all these advances in immersive spatial computing will be the gaming and entertainment space, right? But beyond that, right, I think there is a lot of potential, of immersive computing in education and training, right? Retail and commerce, as well as workplace collaboration, right? Education and training, right? Imagine, we already see a growing number of examples where frontline clinicians, right, like surgeons, are now being trained using some of these AR, VR devices, right? I was told that that's a good space to go into because doctors are already used to wearing something on their head. Right?
Yeah, okay.
And retail and commerce, right? AR, VR enable the customers to visualize products in their own space, right? In their own homes, right? Virtually before making a purchase decision. I think that is a no regret kind of use case, right? And then on workplace collaboration, right? This is something that I think AR, VR will benefit from the trend of remote working, right? I know, there has been a bit of a pullback on remote working trends, right, post-COVID, right? But nonetheless, I think immersive computing can really make remote working more engaging and interactive, right? So check out now what we have prepared for the upcoming Asia Pacific Milipol exhibition in Singapore, right? This is an exhibition for essentially the Homeland Security community, right? And following its debut in Milipol, Paris last November, NCS will again sort of be showcasing its immersive mission room, right, for Homeland Security agents to come together to collaborate on operations and investigation, right? In this sort of mission room virtual space, right? All kinds of real-time data feeds from drones, from CCTVs, from other kinds of sensors will be piped in, right? And you have AI to sort of triage all these data to do the automated data foraging and sense making, and then pipe it, right, to various sort of participants in the mission room who may all be at different locations, teleported in, right? And they have sort of control over what kind of information, what kind of simulations that they will want to run in order to participate in a sort of joint investigation of a situation which is unfolding in real time.
So many great examples there, and I think they start with sort of training and education, and they can work all the way through to quite advanced things where you bring people together. I like it in training and education because it's quite easy, right? And you can immersively
Yep.
trial things, even at doctor's education. Could you see a world where a doctor in a remote country is operating on someone
Yep.
in a different country through immersive? Yep.
Yeah, I do. I think one of the current problems, actually, surprisingly, is around the ability to establish communications from outside the operations theater to inside the operations theater.
Yeah.
As you know, some of these immersive spatial computing approaches are very bandwidth hungry.
Yeah,
Right,
okay.
and there's therefore a need to sort of pipe, a strong pipe 5G pipe in.
Yeah.
Right, but unfortunately, in many of these theaters, right, it's wrapped around concrete sort
Yeah.
of walls,
Yeah,
right,
yeah,
which
yeah.
makes all these communications rather challenging. And to put new devices inside operating theater requires clearance of a lot of policies and regulations.
You could imagine a split-second latency dropout for something. I mean, that could affect a life, right? I mean, we can see it. Like I know we do preventative maintenance is something I've always been quite interested in because you have a lot of remote networks and stuff where you might have a utility, in Australia particularly, a large landmass where you need to get out and rather than sending someone physically out there, identifying a problem, fantastic, you can't have anything. Fixing a problem to me is where it comes to. It's like
Yes.
being able to sit remotely. And there's some great things. We've seen it with postal networks. We've seen it with other things. We've seen one of the great ones we've seen is occupational health and safety, training people real time on mining sites. And unfortunately, we've just seen another mining incident in Australia where someone's been severely injured and I think one instance fatally injured as well. And this sort of stuff could help with that sort of world.
Indeed. And this example you cited is actually a good example of the combination or convergence of green AI,
Yep.
right, with immersive computing, where obviously AI can promote the transition from scheduled maintenance to predictive maintenance
Yep.
by looking at the degradation and performance of various assets, right? And in immersive computing, is used to sort of train the field workforce, right, or aid the field workforce when they are in that remote site, right, to perform the necessary replacement of the assets that are predicted to be degraded.
And we talk fully immersive, but we can talk augmented as well. And I think there's a lot of, we've had some great examples in the last year just on augmented solutions that have really, there are great entertainment experiences or exploration, like you can go to the National Gallery or you can go to a zoo or something like that and have an immersive experience. You can buy a piece of furniture and have an augmented reality experience. But in the corporate world, there's a lot of great uses of it as well, aren't there? It's to just the simple side of technology.
There are many sort of possibilities. So I can't wait for the arrival of the new Apple Vision Pro, right? Which will make some of these ideas become real, right? So currently, a lot of the impediment to wider adoption has been the usability of the head-worn devices. Unfortunately, they tend to be clunky. They are not meant for long-term wearing. While Apple Vision Pro is designed for much longer duration of use, and because of the number of high fidelity sensors, right, you won't get nauseated, right, by wearing it for too long.
Yeah, I can't remember what he said, 18 cameras or something that kind of do that, but it's awesome. It's still early days, and I look at it as the first iPad. I keep the first of everything. I got a history of them, and I had a look at that one versus the current ones. 2 hours of battery life. We're trialling one in Australia within Optus. I think at the moment it's got really 1 hour of battery life in the field. It's a really, really early stage, but they have tried to make it something that's a bit more comfortable. You all customize your headset and all that. It can't be too long before Apple come out with the next and then the next and then the next.
Indeed.
And all of a sudden it'll be like your glasses. I won't know if you've got a lens issue or an eyesight issue or if you just kind of got your script in your glasses and it's telling you everything about the thing in the room. It's kind of like a Marvel movie to some extent.
Indeed.
What do you see some of the main challenges bringing in some of these new tech bets over the next 12 months? within each of these individual areas?
I was thinking about that. I think the most significant sort of hurdle to really unlocking the full potential of emerging technologies is really the geopolitics of today.
Yep.
Right? Historically, the unbridled exchange of ideas and the mobility of people have fueled innovation, right? And that has led to important technological advancements. However, as sort of these geopolitical tensions that we see now increase, right, they have the risk of fragmenting this open ecosystem, right, and therefore creating barriers to this seamless flow of information and technologies across sectors. I worry about that, right? I think this division poses a real risk of decelerating the pace of tech advancements, as collaboration and knowledge sharing will be quite severely constrained.
It's interesting because we operate in a region probably with some of the biggest geopolitical, I wouldn't say tension, but it's more the geopolitical uncertainty, right? Like we have different countries that will, but we've got some of the best technology comes out of America and China, right? And some of the biggest technology, but we can't get them to work together, right? And if we could, we would advance probably a lot quicker, wouldn't we?
At the end of the day, right, I think if this geopolitical tension is not resolved, right, it will be to the detriment of technology advancements.
So we might see a little bit more of a gap on my four walls with the technology in the next trend. We might have a little blip.
There will be a break, right?
There'll be a break. Maybe we need a break, right? It could be a break to catch up on technology. It's like there are so many things that have advanced in the last few years. I look at the kind of, it's a 20, where are we at now? 96. So we're almost at 29 years since the internet really made its emergence, right?
Yeah.
And we look at all of the different technologies, like, I would have suggested that, 29 years ago, and this is a long way back, your role is important, but it wouldn't change as much every year. Like our tech bets every year are changing and changing and changing because there's so much going on, right? 29 years ago, that would have been like a 10-year gap, right? Now it's a 12-month gap. At some point, it might even become a 6-month gap. It's pretty
no doubt, right? There will be a need for a moment of reflection, a moment to internalize what we have achieved so far, and let the sort of laggards, right, catch up, right? We need technology to be inclusive as well, right? And in a situation where the gap between the haves and the have-nots, are too big is unstable.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's you hit on a key point there. It's not just about, we've talked geopolitical, we're talking inclusiveness, we've talked about technology advancements, we've talked about quantum and the power and everything else. There are so many variables that need to play into each other. And I don't think people think about that in general. I think they think about, wow, the Vision Pro is coming, so we're going to be able to do immersive experiences. Well, there's a governance element of it. There's everything that comes involved. I mean, imagine someone somehow manages to hack into your Vision Pro and all of a sudden you're doing a remote fix of a site that doesn't actually belong to you. There's so many different things. This has been an amazing conversation, one of my favorite. I just love delving into different areas of technology and where it can go, and for our Make Tomorrow podcast, a very valuable conversation. So thank you, Shaowei, for being on the show, and we look forward to having many, many more conversations working with you in the future.
Thank you, Tristan, for your time.
If you found today's episode interesting and want to hear more about our Make Tomorrows, please subscribe to our channel.